All right, everybody. Chris here. Hello. Nice to see you. Today's prompt word for Inktober is blind. And I thought of several blind characters that are cool. Rutger Hauer in Blind Fury. Zatoichi, the blind samurai swordsman guy. But ultimately, I decided, you know what? I love Daredevil, and I've never tried to draw his Netflix costume, so that's what I'm doing today. Hello, Charles. Hello, Slyfly Guy. And hello, Nintendo. So, yes, I'm going to take a crack at Daredevil, and let's see how it goes. Notice that I almost always start on the face. If not the face, then the hands, but mostly the face. Wonder if that's just human nature or what. Hope everybody's doing all right. Hello, Keith Thomas. Pretty good evening, says Keith. And Nintendo says, I just noticed I use the same ink pens. I've got several different pens right now. I've got some Faber-Castells, I've got some Pigma Microns, and I've been using some ink brushes as well as an actual brush. The one thing I don't have is there's another kind of inking brush, a brand, Statler. Sometimes I'll use Statler, but I don't have any right now. Hello to Anja. Thank you for joining us. Let's see. I think I need a much smaller pen, and I'm gonna make sure I do the face and get it to a place where I like it. First, I'll finish the mask. I've noticed I tend to do a certain thing during my live streams. I don't know if you guys have noticed, hopefully not. Sometimes when I'm doing fine detail and I really lean in, I realize that all of a sudden I've held my breath for a little bit. And all of a sudden I have to take some deep breaths. I'm like, and I hope that that's not coming across. But sometimes when I lean in, I notice that I've done that. It makes me sound like I'm extra fat. Hello, comic book guy. You know, I wish I could like tape something on the light right here so that it doesn't like sort of white out my face. But I don't know. Looking around to see what kind of materials I have to work with. I just don't see any tape. Oh well. Weird the things that I'm noticing this far into the project. Hi, TARDIS Rider. Yep, gonna give my shot at the Netflix costume version of Daredevil. I used my my Hot Toys Daredevil is reference. I need pancake makeup for my face glare? Yikes. Dark Dragon joins us. Hello. And Gersgorsh and Ghost Dog join us. That's nice. It's a big group. Let's see, a few more people joining us. Milosh and James Berry Jr. Hello, both. Comic Book Guy says he likes the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. Let's not chase him out just because of that. He's probably done some good things in his life too. Okay. I'm just kidding around. Dark Dragon asks anyone's opinion on Frank Miller's Daredevil. Well, Frank did an incredible run on Daredevil. That was Frank at basically his height, in my opinion. I quite like his run. I especially like Born Again, minus a couple little elements, but yeah, it's a great, great run on a comic. Character-defining run. There is a director's cut, Gorsh. Milos is right. There's a director's cut of that movie. Uh, it's a slight improvement. Comic book guy said Frank made Daredevil cool. Well, he fundamentally changed it. He turned it into a gritty crime story. Daredevil had previously basically just been in the mold of Spider-Man, you know? He was kind of a jokester, an acrobatic guy, and fought weird supervillains, and Frank kind of grounded it in a way that it hadn't really been before. So it was an interesting take on the character, and it kind of became his default, the status quo version. I'm going to come back and do some shading on him, but for now I'm going to focus on just getting some of the body in. TARDIS Rider says Frank Miller's Daredevil was the best. I remember Born Again. I remember when Born Again was new and it felt like nothing else around. James Barry Jr. says he's caught up on my comic tropes. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. And he really enjoyed Hellboy and Junji Ito. Cool. Daredevil was a kind of a D-lister. It was Stiltman and goofy people like Sir General? I don't know what that means. Anyway, let's see. Nintendo says Daredevil is arguably the best street level hero with some of the worst villains. Stiltman? Geez, those were dark times. Yeah, okay, I get it. Nobody likes Stiltman. uh, he, yeah. Yeah, he doesn't have a great rogues gallery. I'll definitely agree with that. I mean, his best villain is a repurposed Spider-Man villain. I mean, Kingpin, it works great with Daredevil, but Kingpin was a Spider-Man enemy at first. For a long time, really. So, yeah. Gonna sneeze. Ooh, wow. Royfield says that he loved J.R. Jr.'s run on Daredevil with Ann Nocenti writing. I agree. That was a pretty interesting run. Typhoid Mary was a good villain. I mean, he went up against a version of Ultron. Mephisto was one of his enemies, and it worked. I thought that Ann Nocenti and John Romita Jr. also did a really good job. Because you know what? They tried something completely different. So, yeah, I really liked that run for what it was. I agree with that. Bullseye is cool and the hand is cool, says Ghost Dog. The hand is cool sometimes. Sometimes the hand is less effective than other times. So it kind of always depends on who's in charge. There's always this weird thing where if you've got one ninja, they're a threat. If you've got 100 ninjas, they all go down like nothing. It's weird. You'll see it in every movie, every comic, etc. Soon as there's multiple ninjas, none of them are tough. But if there's just one, he's tough. Nintendo says that none of the main street level heroes have good arch enemies except Punisher because of Jigsaw. Let's see. Well, I would call Spider-Man a street level hero, and I think he does have a good rogues gallery. but he's maybe the exception that proves the rule, right? Moon Knight has great villains, says Milosh. Does he? I guess I'm not super familiar with Moon Knight. What are some of his villains? Bushwhacker? Like, who else is a Moon Knight villain? I'm trying to think. Name me some of his good villains. I believe you. I'm not thinking of them, so I'm curious. Is there a reason people draw comparisons to Batman and Daredevil, says Dark Dragon? Probably just because they're sort of acrobatic, athletic guys without any like real superpowers. I mean, Daredevil sort of has a superpower. He does, but I don't know that it's not always an advantage in a fight. It's more of an advantage in how he approaches, his investigations. That'd be an interesting matchup in terms of a fight. I don't know who I'd necessarily give the edge to. Huh. Okay, folks talking back and forth. Let's see. TARDIS Rider says, not comics related, but all the ninja talk makes me think of the movie The Raid Redemption. It's amazing. Yeah, The Raid is fantastic, and so is the sequel. Like, both of them are fantastic. Just, damn, some of the best martial arts fighting in the last decade, no question. Milos lists for me some of Moon Knight's villains: Bushman, Black Spectre, Khonshu, depending on a story. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, they've been written well. Mm. Royfield Brown says, as a kid, I never liked Gene Colan's art on Daredevil. Um, I I guess I see what you mean. I do think that Gene Colan is a talented artist, but that Daredevil might not have been the best fit for his talents. Didn't he also do a lengthy run on Tomb of Dracula? If that's who I'm thinking of, then he did a much better job there. Um, but that's just my opinion. Ah, okay, yeah, he did do that. Cool. And his Green Lantern was great. You know what? I never read any DC stuff by Gene Colan, so that's interesting. Strangely enough, the Daredevil Netflix series is what got me into more gritty comics. Well, if that's the case, you should definitely start looking at some good crime writers. And I think that, I've made this recommendation many times before, but it's because I love him so much. Uh, Ed Brubaker, especially anything that he does with artist Sean Phillips. Great crime comics. Really exceptional stuff. TARDIS Rider says Gene Colan did almost the entire run of Tomb of Dracula. I have the complete run. Wow, that's a really cool run to have. At some point, I'll have to talk about Blade from that era. I think that would be fun to address. Very different than the movie version. Yeah. But that's why Tomb of Dracula was so good, was because of all the different supporting characters. Like, you were like, I guess they're probably not going to ever kill Dracula, or but maybe they will. I mean, I guess it could still be called Tomb of Dracula and not have Dracula, but still, like, that was a book where you actually were like, well, they could kill any of these heroes, any of these supporting characters, because the book is about Dracula. So that was kind of cool. Mike says, it's really weird. I brought up Bloodshot yesterday, and then Scott brought him up on an episode of Comic Misconceptions I watched later in the night about how convoluted his origin is. Not sure who Scott is, but yeah. Yeah, I just remember Bloodshot being kind of a mess of a book. And what superhero do you think is overhyped? Asks Comic Book Guy. Um, Probably Batman. I love Batman, but he's made out to be too perfect. It's not it's not exciting most of the time because you feel like nobody's gonna put him in a risky situation because he's just gotta solve it so easily. I don't know. Get a little burned out on that sometimes. Then again, I haven't read this Tom King run that everybody tells me has been really good. So maybe some of the recent comics have addressed this, and I'm just not caught up. It's possible. Gersagor says, I've done a Blade homage in Champions Online called Daywalker. That sounds fun. TARDIS Rider points out there are several issues of Tomb of Dracula where Dracula does not appear. Don't really remember that anymore. It's been too long since I've actually read any of those issues. But yeah, I liked Hannibal King and Frank Drake, Blade. I liked the idea behind the Night Stalkers comic in the 90s where those three sort of formed a supernatural investigation agency in Boston. I was like, all right, this sounds like a little different. But I don't think it really ended up going anywhere that great. So it didn't really pay off for me. Not a big fan. How would a McFarlane run of Daredevil be? In my opinion, it would be good, but it would be boosted by the art of Capullo. Yeah, maybe. Greg Capullo on Daredevil would be good. Yeah, he's a good artist. Nintendo agrees with me that Batman is too overpowered now, and he's one of the smartest minds in the DC universe. I've always thought, he's a good detective. He's good at tactics. That doesn't make him a genius like, Reed Richards or something. It just makes him good at planning. But the way that they make him like plan for any eventuality is like a killer from the Saw movies. It's like he plans 20 years ahead for every eventuality. It's a bit much. It's a bit much. I like Batman. I like Batman a lot. I think that he's a pretty versatile character that you can tell a lot of different stories with. I just think you need to sort of tone down his capabilities. I always thought that the animated series did a pretty good job at that. Like, that Batman could still have a little bit of trouble with just an ordinary strong henchman. Ken Ives joins me and says, who's my favorite EC Comics artist? I really like Jack Davis. I would say Wally Wood overall. Wally Wood is one of my favorites. Mike says that Wolverine got way overblown when the first movie came out. Well, Wolverine had been overblown for a very long time, but I think that, to Marvel's credit, they really did sort of kill him off a few years ago, and I know he'll be back, but they kept him out of the spotlight for, the actual main version of the character for quite some time. So I give him a little bit of credit for that. He was overexposed. Let's see, what else? Hollow Nano joins us. Hello. Gershagor says, I saw 3 of them in a group at a time when all Midnight Suns get on Lilith. Oh, yeah, the Night Stalkers comic. It was a different side of Marvel for me, horror tone and chills on the spine. Well, I think that's what they were going for. For me, it didn't all quite work. I think that they tried, and I was excited for the idea of it, but I don't really care that much for Night Stalkers or that whole Midnight Suns arc. It's not bad per se. Well, I don't really remember, actually. Maybe it was bad. It's been a long time since I read it. Hollow Nano says, wait, holy. It's the Netflix Daredevil, one of my all-time favorite superhero costume designs. Cool. Would you ever get some of the actual comic artists or writers in episodes of Comic Tropes? Asks the Ghost Dog. If it was easier, then yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of people that I know in the industry that would probably show up in an episode, but we all live in different towns, and it's too hard to do it during a Comic-Con because there's so much going on. It's not likely that I would do a Comic Tropes with the subject. But I have bigger ideas. If the channel ever takes off, I have bigger ideas for what I could do. We'll see. Hollow Nano says, I've recently tried to get into cross-hatching and whatnot, but it can be difficult to get the flow of the lines good. Well, that's the whole point of why I'm working on this, is to get my techniques for cross-hatching and feathering consistent. That's one of the big things that I'm working on. I agree, it can be very tricky. It looks easy, but it really isn't. It's deceptive. Fingers crossed, but I'm not hearing any of the kids screaming at the playground across the street, so maybe I've lucked out tonight. Hopefully I didn't jinx myself. Hello, Cheddar Monkey. Welcome. TARDIS Rider said, you mentioned Wally Wood. Are you familiar with his 22 panels that always work guide? Absolutely I am, and he's right. Wally Wood was an incredible artist, and that 22 panels that work is fantastic for any artist that's ever stumped as to how to approach something. Great guide. I've taught some writing for some writing for comics classes before, and I've mentioned that, or I've shown it with the writers. Just I'm like, like when you're planning things out and you're describing panels, here are some ideas that always work if you're stumped. Comic book guy says that the image artists all had similar looking books. It was just a product of that was what was popular at the time. That's all. It was a trend. Dark Dragon says, something I want to do in life is go in the comics industry, and I want to try new things, especially with Daredevil, Batman, and really anything I could get assigned to. Well, if you want to do new things, I say create your own character. Like I have a lot of affection for these characters too, but at the same time, there's probably only so much that the company itself is going to allow you to do with those properties. So I say create your own. Create your own ideas. Don't get me wrong, I would like to have a run on, Daredevil or some other character, but you know what? Like ultimately, long term, I'd rather work on my own stuff. Um, yeah. And I'm not saying that you can't do original things with characters. I mean, it gets to the heart of like what is a definitive run on a character. We're doing Daredevil tonight, so like Frank Miller's drawing. Frank Miller's run was definitive for Daredevil. Walt Simonson's run on Thor was definitive. There are certain writer artists that have created a definitive version, but they're few and far between. I guess that's my thoughts on the subject. Got a busy room tonight, so I'm missing a bunch of questions. Feel free to ask again if I miss it. But Sigamig says, hey Chris, do you know how Image evolved from 90s extreme to having a more diverse range of comics? Yeah. Originally, it was formed just for the original 7, which soon became 6 creators, to have their own company where they owned everything they created. It was for them. And then they invited a few guys like, Sam Keith with the Max and Dale Keown with Pitt. They were selective invitations to certain people. in the industry. And eventually they were like, well, we can extend the model basically on a submission basis. And the guy that really sort of pioneered that was Jim Valentino when he was the publisher. And, he, to his credit, he gave guys like Robert Kirkman an opportunity. But he also picked a bunch of comics that weren't so great. And so they switched over to Eric Larson, I believe, as the publisher. And there's other guys there like Eric Stevenson that have a big voice in the company. But yeah, it was just basically time. Eventually they were like, all right, we've got our foundation in place. We can extend this deal to other people. It's really no skin off our backs. Dark Dragon says that he's got original characters in the works. He's trying to make them the best he can. So, cool. Bottle Lapsta says, agreed, build something new. Everybody just keeps reheating the same bowl of soup. Enough already. You do get to a point, like at a certain, it's not necessarily an age, but after you've read superhero stuff for a while, you're like, why are they so dominant? And I do see the irony in me saying that as I draw a superhero. But like I say, I have affection for them. It's not my overall main goal in life to work on somebody else's creation and earn money for Marvel or DC. My goal is to earn money for my family. And to entertain, hopefully create something lasting that other people enjoy. Comic book guy recommends checking out indie comics. Sure. TARDIS Rider says, speaking of Jim Valentino, Normal Man is a fun read. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Nintended says, what would you say are the more expensive and impressive comics in your collection? Oh, not much. 4 years ago, I took a new job on the other side of the country. I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, and I decided I was going to sell my comics collection. I had about 30 long boxes, and I sold it all. So I don't really have, well, I kept a few things. Just stuff that either I worked on or friends worked on, or for some reason it had some sentimental value to it. But that wasn't much. I didn't keep much. So, you say, what was it, expensive or impressive? I don't have many anymore. First prints of The Tick, the entire run of Walking Dead, like several copies of issue 1. I know that those held some value. But yeah, that's about it. Nothing too old anymore. I didn't really keep much superhero stuff, I don't think. I don't know if I kept any. So, yeah. Sold it all. It was just time. So I don't have a huge collection anymore. What else? TARDIS Writer says, the internet now gives anyone the ability to publish and create original content. The trick is getting it well known and paying the mortgage. But if you want to create, you can. He-Man, if you think about it, is Man-Man. That's from Comic Book Guy. It's pretty deep, but you're right. I'll check the chat room in just a sec. All right, let's see. Gershgorsh says he's got the same story. He sold, I guess, his collection, and he just kept Jim Lee and a few favorite stories. Keith Thomas is talking about Daredevil, and he says, I like the Brian Michael Bendis, Alex Maleev, and the Ed Brubaker, Michael Lark combinations as much as Miller's run. I do like the Brubaker run in particular. I agree. Mike says, I asked earlier, and I don't think anyone noticed, but what's a good ongoing run? Something that maybe started within the last few years. This is a question for everyone. So if anybody has a good ongoing comic recommendation, throw it out right now to Mike. He's looking for recommendations. Let's see. What's a good ongoing title? There's not a lot that I'm reading right now on an ongoing basis. Yeah, I don't think I'm the one to ask, I guess, because I can't really think of anything that strong to recommend. Hollow Nano says, you should check out the channel Markers and Monsters. He has some cool illustrations that might be right up your alley. Try to remember that. Thanks. What else are people talking about right now? Do I have a DeviantArt? Nope, I don't. Sorry. Nintendo recommends Outcast from Image. Yeah, actually, Outcast is pretty cool. That's a good recommendation. Ghost Dog says, when I was a kid, I'd go over to my friend's house and we would make comics. I was the artist, he was the writer. It was about superhero rabbits who fought monsters. Childhood memories. That's cool. Oh, Saga! Keith recommends Saga, and I'm sorry I didn't think of that because there's I'm just not picking up comics on a monthly basis, but Saga's fantastic, yeah. Wish I'd thought of that one. Great recommendation, Keith. Really good. I need to actually catch up on that one. I'm a little behind. Um, Chris, what's house style art? Do all artists have to draw in one style like Archie's? They always look the same? House style isn't much of a thing anymore, but through the 80s, Marvel and DC did each have what's called a house style. And, you know, every artist has their own style. At the same time, I'm trying to think. Like, they had character models for characters, and you weren't allowed to deviate from them. Like it was very important to Marvel and DC for a long, long time that you tried to draw very similarly. And so they would have, models of their characters that you had to follow. It really started to break in the 90s. For instance, you know how Todd McFarlane drew Spider-Man with sort of spaghetti webbing and what else? Like really big eyes. That was definitely a big break from the house style, and so they had like slowly sort of relaxed their rules on it. But up until just before then, everybody sort of was encouraged to draw in a very similar style. So those were house styles. And yeah, it's kind of like how Archie was for the longest time. But Archie, even Archie, is sort of a let that go. Sigamig says, "Have you read Monstrous?" I haven't. Yeah, I've seen it in the store, but I haven't read it, so I'm not too familiar with it. Yeah. TARDIS Rider said, "Is Fables still being published?" No, they wrapped that one up. They had a planned conclusion and they hit it a few years ago. So you can read that whole run now. Milos recommends some good ongoing stuff for Mike L. He says Black Bolt, Kamandi, and the Doctor Doom version of Iron Man. Okay. Spada Lobster says, "What advice would you give to somebody making a graphic novel as far as marketing and promotion are concerned?" It depends on the type of story, doesn't it? Like if you're creating a horror story versus a crime story versus a superhero story, it's going to have very different audiences to go after. So I would say first, know your target audience and figure out where they go, what they read and trust, and that's where you want to spend your ad dollars. That's my 2 cents. Hope it makes sense. Gersa Gersh says he watched the Mythica movies, 5 of them. The thing that helped him get through them was it always tricked him to see superpowers in use instead of magic. Yeah, I don't know the Mythica movies, sorry. Nintendo says there's a Marvel comic book for every character right now. It's getting a bit ridiculous. Why does Bullseye need a whole comic to himself? I love him, but it seems a bit too much. Because it's a business and they are literally trying to get market share, as in they are trying to get the shelf space. The more titles that they put out that are getting ordered, they don't even have to last that long. If a retailer orders their books, that's competition not getting ordered. And if they have more shelf space, they have more potential audience buying their stuff. So it's a very calculated move to obtain market share. It's something comic book companies do from time to time. They just start publishing a lot of stuff. Does anyone make D&D comics? Asks Cheddar Monkey. If you're talking literally D&D, like licensed comics, I don't think so. I do think that Skybound from Image publishes a few fantasy titles, like forgetting their names right now. Something green something. So there are some fantasy comics, not a lot. It's probably a slightly untapped market, in my opinion. Obviously, I don't work in the industry, so haven't been studying those metrics, but seems to me that there's an audience for good, well done fantasy. Why are comics only sold in specialty shops? Asks Sigamigs. It is a huge problem. In the 80s, specialty shops started ordering comic books, and that was called the direct market. There was also just the regular market. That would include bookstores, grocery stores, convenience stores, any of these places could order comic books. In like they'd get these magazines every month that said, here are the magazines you can order, here are the comic books you can order. The direct market started getting more and more sales as time went on just because it had a regular audience. And then Marvel and DC basically just gave up on the regular market. They just said, like, let's focus all our energy on the direct market. That meant that now there was only basically one distributor, Diamond. It's a broken model. It's so broken. And it helps them control the costs, and it makes it very hard for new readers to discover their comics. It's very short-sighted thinking. It's upsetting to me. Comic book guy says they need to kill off superheroes and leave them dead. They do that in other countries. Why can't we? Because it's a business. Royfield asks me how my new job hunt is going. It's okay. I've got one or two leads I need to explore in greater detail. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm nervous. I'm updating my resume. I'm talking to former coworkers and getting recommendations. And I'm talking to all my friends, telling them that I'm looking for a new opportunity. Yeah. It's miserable. I'm insanely depressed, to be honest. It's not good. I started this channel because I was depressed and I needed to keep busy. So it's good that I have it right now in that regard. Yeah. Last time I was in this position and got really depressed, I tried to kill myself twice. I've sold all my guns. I used to have some guns. I used to just like going to the shooting range. I don't really like. I got sick of being a gun owner, and it started to make me nervous having them. So I sold them all. So I'm trying to take care of myself. I'm really depressed though. I'll shut up. Oh, sorry you weren't feeling well lately, Cheddar Monkey. Glad you were able to make it tonight. That's cool. Comic Book Guy says Valerian and Laureline have become a new fave. It's not bad. There's some really good stuff. I think it sort of peters out the last couple of years. I don't know if it's because they got old or what, but it's not bad, but it's not as strong as it was sort of throughout most of the run. Sigamig says it sucks that you have depression, but we thank you for the awesome content. Yeah, of course. Happy to provide it. Uh, Dude, I'm not going to tell you anyone knows how you feel, but I'm sure I'm not alone saying I've been there and I'm super glad we both made the decision we fell. Thanks, Mike. Hollow Nano says, I know what depression is like. It can be really tough, but it takes a lot of strength to share that with us. And remember, we will be here to support you. Well, this is nice. And TARDIS Rider says, sorry that I'm having to go through this. Ghost Dog wishes me the best. And Gershigor says, we want you with us. Appreciate that. Totally aware. Very much appreciated. Depression isn't very rational. It's it's just a feeling, and it can be very hard to deal with. I don't know what else to say. Um, but I take medication, and I'm trying to eat well and stay active during this time. I'm coming up on the worst part of the year because I get seasonal affective disorder due to there being less sunlight. Uh, so it's a tough time of the year, no matter what. Makes me nervous. But I appreciate all the kind thoughts. Thank you. It's very kind. Doesn't have to all be about me. We can still talk comics and stuff. Didn't mean to unload that much. Dark Dragon says that the reason he does comics, or she, shouldn't assume, excuse me, but the reason Dark Dragon does comics is that it keeps their depression out for a while. A lot of my friends support me, but question why I'm so angry in writing and why I write grim stories. Yeah, I get it. Nintendo says, "Oh man, Chris, thanks for being that open with us. You'll get through it. You'll always have us. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true." No, I know. I appreciate that. Comic Book Guy says, "I tried to do myself in too because of cerebral palsy and other pressures, but comic shows like these help, and getting out more helped. It does. Socializing and keeping busy with projects are two fantastic things to combat depression. So take care of yourself, Comic Book Guy." Cheddar Monkey says, depression is a monster, but reaching out and connecting with people, it gets better. It's like fighting a high level boss. When we team up and use our skills, we can take it down and gain XP and loot. Yep. Yep. You're not wrong. Well, I need to work a little faster here, don't I? I'm taking a little too long. Has anybody else got the Movie Pass card? I got it a week ago, and it is pretty awesome. I don't know if anybody else knows about it. It's sort of new. Anyway, you pay $10 a month, and gives you a card. It's like a credit card or a debit card, and you use an app, and you can go to basically any movie at any theater. Uh, you can't see a movie more than once, and you have to buy the ticket in person at the theater at some point that day. But like, I could go to a movie every single day of the week with Movie Pass card. It's for $10 a month. Yeah, that's a good deal. You can have it paid off by just going to like one evening show these days. So I don't know if anybody else is using it, but I love it. Hello, Jesse Marsh. Thanks for joining. Mike says, I'm glad you're comfortable enough with us to open up, though. I know being in that spotlight isn't fun, but we're all here for you. Yeah, I don't like talking about it a lot, so I don't know. I guess I just had to vent for a moment there, but appreciate y'all listening to me. You're very kind people. Let's see. Hollow Nano says, I'm going to try to get some sleeps. Thanks for the stream. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Really do. It's nice to see you. Michael talks about the Movie Pass card. Does it work anywhere, or is it only certain chains? It's probably certain chains, but I mean, I know it works at AMC and Regal. I've used it there. I've got a local art house movie theater that's just independent. They accept it. Actually, there's 3 artsy movie theaters in the area that all accept it. So I don't know who doesn't accept it. There's probably limitations, but yeah, it's really awesome. You just basically have to be within 100 yards of the movie theater, and then you can buy a ticket for any time that day. You just basically on the app say like, this is the one I'm going to buy, like say the 1:50 p.m. showing of Blade Runner 2. And what it does is as soon as you do that, you instantly have the exact amount on the credit card that they give you. Like they know how to calculate any taxes, etc. Like what the matinee price or the full movie price is, and it just works. You just buy it right then and there. It's pretty awesome. All right, Intendude, thank you very much for stopping by. Appreciate it. Nice talking with you. In general, there aren't that many movies I want to see, says TARDIS Rider. That's fair. And you know what? Some people really don't enjoy these days the movie theater experience because of maybe rude people, etc. I've got a buddy that really hates it. So I totally respect that. Personally, I'm a movie nerd. I love going to the movies, and I'm just glad I got this movie pass right now because I'd feel pretty bad spending a lot of discretionary income, but don't really need to worry about it. It's just a $10 a month, and I can see as many movies in the theater as I want, basically. I mean, a situation where it probably wouldn't work too well is like trying to see Star Wars like on the opening weekend. Like that would be very difficult because everybody's pre-ordered their tickets and you can't pre-order with this system. But if I want to see it like a week or 2 later, I can. So, and of course, nothing's stopping me from just going to the movies regularly. So anyway, you just sort of understand the limitations going in, and I think it's pretty awesome. Singamig says, was there some sort of backlash from theaters? Maybe, but and I don't know how long it can work. I really do not understand how it works. All I can tell you is that it does work. I'm using it and I'll use it for as long as it works. Jesse Marsh says, I'm still confused how it works. I don't know. I really don't. I'm paying $10. They put the amount I need to have to buy a movie ticket. Maybe I have no idea, Jesse. Like, it does not sound like a sustainable business model, but maybe there's something I'm not aware of or understanding. I'm not gonna look it in the. I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth right now. For right now, it's pretty cool tool to have. I'm probably not gonna be able to ink this Daredevil all the way through before I need to take off. Um, I've put a little too much detail into him. I should have simplified things. That's sort of one thing I'm learning. Like when I'm doing this, it's like my goal is to sort of see how much can I do in an hour. And sometimes my illustrations require inking that takes a lot longer than an hour. So, interesting to learn. Uh, might be some room for me to simplify things. Like, I've got a pose here, but does this Daredevil require all these costume details? Maybe not. Maybe not. Chris, is it cool if I hug you? Sure. Hirschigor says, I watch in cinema only one movie a year. You're in Poland, right? Hmm. I've got a friend that lives in Poland. He goes to movies all the time. So I don't know if I was wondering if the experience is significantly different or anything, but I don't think so. Talking about the movie theater, now I've got this really annoying Eminem song that they always play before the movies, like playing in my head. Ooh, well, that's my fault, isn't it? Have you watched The Golden Circle yet? If so, what did you think of it? I did see it. I didn't love it. It was okay. It was kind of amusing, but the first one was better. It got really really silly. Um, and it was intentional, but it was still really silly. Yeah. Mike says, I was so disappointed with Avatar. I kept telling everyone that I hold movies to the same standard as video games. Graphics are not a substitute for content. Yeah, that's fair. So far, oh, sorry, no, misread that. Dark Dragon says, so for my comics, I'm way too scatterbrained because I'm writing and illustrating at least 7 characters right now. I'm trying to hand some off to my friends to write. For just character descriptions, or are you each trying to write a part of the same story? Because if that's the case, that might end up pretty disjointed. Not sure that sounds like a tough approach to take. What else are people asking? TARDIS Writer says, I walked out of Avatar halfway through. Too long and boring. You know what? I mean, that's one I saw in the theater, and I've never watched it a second time. Like, I've never felt the desire to watch Avatar again. It did huge business, but I didn't think it was anything special either. Obviously, a lot of people must have liked it. I don't know. Let's see. Mueller says, thanks for sharing the depression stuff. I've dealt with suicide attempts too. Mine were out of stress and nihilism. Ironically, my gun helped me through it. Wow. Well, I hope you take care of yourself, Milos. You seem like a really cool guy, so please just take care of yourself. I know it's easy to say, harder to do. Probably going to take off in a little bit, folks. Just giving you a heads up. Been working on this for a little over an hour, and overall, I kind of like it. I just realized that I'm not going to be able to finish it, so we'll see. Up. Good night, Ghost Dog. Let's see. And a few folks chatting with each other. Cool. Cool. Oh, I better not whistle too well. I just realized YouTube will go, hey, that's copyrighted material. And then where will I be? Then I won't make my nickel this week. Just getting lost in the details, I guess. TARDIS Rider's also taken off. Great Daredevil, and good wishes to one and all. Good night. See ya. Chrissy says, wanna make me... Yeah, I would love some ramen. Oh, yes. Chrissy's ramen is not regular ramen. It's a big, lovely noodle dish. It's quite wonderful. Yes, that sounds really nice. Yeah. Why didn't I just draw his black ninja costume? What was I thinking? Sigamig says, have you tried shabu shabu? I have not. I'll look it up. Hello, CSNG. Keith Thomas says, the novelty of seeing the world they created for Avatar in 3D was cool. About it for the movie for me. Cheddar Monkey says, somebody named Naruto loves ramen with those swirly fish cake things that I don't know what they are called. Okay. Yeah, I need to stop, especially if dinner's being made for me now. Darn it, I really wanted to just go a little further with all of this, that's all. But guess I'm not going to be able to finish this one tonight. Well, maybe in the future. All right, folks, I'm taking off. Appreciate everybody being here. The prompt word for today was blind. If you want to follow me on social media, right up there, that's my Twitter handle, Chris Piers. You're in the chat room down there, but I'm up here. This is me. This is what I was able to accomplish within an hour. Wish I could have done more, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun talking to all of you too. So thank you. I might finish this up on my own. Or maybe I'll do another live stream tomorrow morning or something like that, just for people that never have a chance to join me. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'll do a live stream in the morning for a little bit, finish some stuff up. All right, good talking to all of you. Until we meet again, keep reading comics.